Jeepies, I'm your host Sid, and welcome to another entry of Do Talkin' to Me's Scooby-Doo's Day. In today's vid, I'll be reviewing Scooby-Doo Where Are You Season 2, Episode 1, Nowhere to Hide, the premiere episode of the second season that first aired on September 12th, 1970, one day shy of a year after the series first premiered on September 13th, 1969. Now, during this time period, many Saturday morning cartoon shows had exceptionally brief runs. Most only received a single season order, and if they were lucky, they'd maybe get a second season. And Hanna-Barbera, a major player in TV animation at the time, was no exception to this general rule. Still, CBS had to have had some faith in Scooby-Doo Where Are You to have ordered a second season that aired less than 8 months after the first season finished. It's hard to really gauge how popular Scooby-Doo must have been in its early days, but its first season was probably only a mild success. The series may have been renewed for a second season, but it was a very small season at only 8 episodes compared to the first season's 17. To give some perspective, generally the standard order of episodes for a season of a TV show is between 13 and 22 episodes. And the original Scooby-Doo series, Where Are You, only had 2 seasons. That's right, the original Scooby series only had 25 episodes total. Of course, it feels like Scooby-Doo Where Are You had a lot more episodes than that, and it's mostly because Hanna-Barbera did a little cheating. Scooby-Doo over the course of the 1970s became one of Hanna-Barbera's most popular cartoon franchises, and the original series is still the most widely beloved incarnation, but its small number of episodes proved to be a problem for Hanna-Barbera when it came to selling the original series in syndication for other networks to broadcast later. So Hanna-Barbera in 1978 took the 16 final episodes of the third Scooby-Doo series, The Scooby-Doo Show, and intended to pass them off as a revival of the original series, a third season of Scooby-Doo Where Are You? Only 9 of these 16 episodes actually aired as the fake third season of Scooby-Doo Where Are You though, and they've since retroactively reverted to using their Scooby-Doo show intros in syndication and home video. The confusion surrounding Scooby-Doo's fake third season still remains though, because Warner Brothers still calls the 1978 episodes of the Scooby-Doo show the third season of Where Are You, and includes them in DVD and Blu-ray collections of the original series, which are nice to have as a bonus, but don't be fooled by marketing or technicalities. Scooby-Doo Where Are You only had 25 authentic episodes between 1969 and 70. The 1978 episodes are frauds.
Me scared? Like, don't be silly.
Anyway, now that that rant is out of the way, let's actually review the first episode of Scooby-Doo Where Are You Season 2, Nowhere to Hide, which is not only a solid premiere for this season, but it's also a classic episode featuring an iconic villain and unique twists on the show's usual formula. A gruesome green ghoul has been terrorizing the town, but mostly stealing rare jewelry, because even monsters need to pay the bills. And the green fellow hides in the most unassuming vehicle possible. No police officers would ever think to check inside this van for anything that's remotely the color green. Inside, the Scooby Gang are enjoying Sundays after attending a magic show at their high school.
How was the magic show at the high school tonight, Freddy? Terrific.
One of the very few times that it's mentioned these teens actually go to school in the original show.
And so are these double fudge sundaes.
With a pickle on top.
Shaggy, that's very clearly a jalapeno. Maybe a pickled jalapeno, but it's still a stretch.
I'm gonna pull the vanishing Scooby trick.
After the gang's dessert, they head back to wherever it is they live, but Scooby happens upon the green ghoul hiding beneath a beach blanket. And like they saw a spider in the shower, the gang instantly flees their van, and luckily the green dude didn't steal it and instead flees on foot. Velma very quickly recognizes the ghoul as the ghost of Mr. Hyde.
That's the ghost of Mr. Hyde.
Even when they don't stumble on a haunting right away, Velma still likes to stay informed on all the latest hauntings in the area, I guess.
You mean that creepy jewel thief who's been scaring everybody in town?
Instead of just reporting this wanted criminal's hideout, though, it's the Scooby Gang, so of course they follow Mr. Hyde to his home turf, risking walking into a trap they of course walk straight into. Luckily, the lab they fall into, while looking like it is used to cook illicit substances, is owned by a friendly fellow by the name of Dr. Jekyll.
I'm not so sure I'm not the ghost.
What do you mean, Dr. Jekyll?
Yes, it's revealed that this man is the great-grandson of the original famous Dr. Jekyll of literature.
Like my great-grandfather, the first Dr. Jekyll.
So it should be a no-brainer that this guy is the Mr. Hyde that's been running around. But this Jekyll goes out of his way to admit up front that he is likely transforming into the ghost of his great-grandfather's Mr. Hyde persona.
I may also be changing into the horrible Mr. Hyde, but this time as his ghost.
You see, Dr. Jekyll has spent the last few years working on something very useful, a multivitamin that you only need to take once.
I've been working on a new vitamin formula that you only have to take once in your life.
Not a cure for cancer or anything like that, a vitamin. And after testing his creation, Dr. Jekyll discovers what happens when you eat more than one Flintstones gummy.
And the room began to spin.
Nowhere to Hide is a refreshingly unusual episode of Scooby-Doo, a pretty big departure from the typical formula. The mystery has seemingly been solved for Scooby and the gang right away. Dr. Jekyll admits that he's most likely the one behind Mr. Hyde and even confesses that he's in possession of the stolen jewelry.
There is no doubt that I am the ghost of Hyde.
Which is more than enough to make a case to the cops and let them take care of the rest. Dr. Jekyll basically gives himself up when he could have easily just forced these trespassers off his property and denied any wrongdoing.
There's something strange about this whole thing. If you don't mind, sir, we'd like to find out what it is.
But the Scooby Gang still insists on wringing out a mystery out of this situation and asks to explore Jekyll's home, and the doctor obliges their request for whatever reason. It's a bizarre scenario when you think about it. This man confesses to being a jewel thief, and he allows these strangers to split up in his house looking for evidence that can further incriminate him. It makes no sense, but it's like an unintentional self-parody of a Scooby-Doo mystery. The villain practically gives himself up, but the gang still insists on treating it like there's still a mystery to solve because they have nothing better to do. The mystery ultimately doesn't really matter that much. It's just an excuse to have some teens wander around creepy buildings and get chased by monsters for a half hour, and it doesn't get old.
Several hours later, I was awakened by my housekeeper, Helga.
To the episode's credit, it does at least have another suspect, Helga, Dr. Jekyll's vaguely foreign, suspicious, hulking maid, who, looking at the mansion, clearly doesn't do her job.
And you've made a mess of the attic just after I finished cleaning it.
She's only seen once before the denouement, but they try to give Helga a little more of a backstory to make her more of a red herring. You see, she was once a trapeze artist in the circus, which is definitely enough evidence to make Helga look more guilty than the guy who actually admitted to the crimes.
Why should a circus star be working as a housemaid in a creepy place like this?
The mystery itself is pretty weak, but what matters most is the villain and the setting of a Scooby episode, and Jekyll's mansion might not be the most inventive as a typical haunted house, but it is a lovingly rendered haunted mansion featuring some of the show's spookiest backdrops, and it lends itself as fertile ground for memorable sight gags, including one where Shag and Scoob somehow hide inside a TV, pretending to be a creepy variety show.
If you don't sign the treaty, running dog, we'll take back the trinkets and beads.
Okay, probably should have stuck to Uncle Happy Time. The ghost of Mr. Hyde is also a solid monster. I mean, sure, all he is a green guy in a hat and coat who laughs and chases the gang around, but that's all you really need. And his design is one of the most iconic because of the simplicity, the purity of it. He's the ghost of Mr. Hyde, sure, but with his design, he could be almost anything. It's broad, but also memorable. As the first episode of Scooby-Doo Where Are You's second season, this is also the episode that debuted the show's classic theme song performed by Austin Roberts.
Got some work to do now.
But in addition to that, this is also the first episode that features chase music performed by Roberts. All but one episode of season 2 featured a different song in the background of a wacky chase.
Got to love the world, be a friend.
The upbeat music was always cheesy and incongruous with the spooky atmosphere of the show, but it carries with it a charm unique to the 70s, and the chases themselves are fun and added a lot more energy to the show, and this episode's is no exception, involving Hyde chasing Shag and Scoob on a runaway gurney leading out into the swamp surrounding the mansion. The song itself used during the chase, Cupful of Sunshine though, is not one of the best Scooby songs. It's serviceable, but not really memorable.
A couple of sunshine, I added a touch of the rainbow.
What is memorable about the episode sound-wise, though, is the fact that this is the first episode featuring the late Heather North's voice as Daphne.
Would you believe we're looking for a ghost?
Replacing Stefaniana Christofferson in the role, and North was a great replacement, giving Daphne's voice more of a personality.
But if that's the case, isn't the Great Dane in danger?
I think we're in trouble already. Look!
For many to this day, Heather North is the definitive voice of Daphne, and to date at least, she's the longest-running voice of Daphne, playing the character from 1970 to 1997.
Scooby, you and Fred check upstairs. Velma and I look in the basement.
Daphne?
Anyway, after discovering suction cups, this is enough for the gang to decide they've solved the quote-unquote mystery.
Now it's our turn to scare the Hyde off of Hyde.
And they have Shag and Scoob lure the ghost into the trap, which is a little bit different. The ghost of Hyde is tormented by the gang dressed as him, until he ironically runs straight into his own trap. The gang is ultimately convinced the ghost of Hyde is Helga, but he's in fact Dr. Jekyll.
Should be Helga, the housemaid. Dr. Jekyll?
Whoa! No way! Essentially, Dr. Jekyll was a failed scientist, and he ended up becoming a failed Scooby-Doo villain as well. Instantly found out and instantly confessing to his crimes. But I guess Jekyll didn't count on the gang wanting to make extra sure he was guilty. So Jekyll tried to gaslight the Scooby gang with fake clues into thinking Helga was actually the one behind the scheme. And she was actually gaslighting Jekyll into thinking he was Hyde.
A can of phosphorus paint.
And a bottle of knockout drops.
This is all totally insane, but ultimately the clincher was that Jekyll needed suction cups to be so agile, while Helga herself was once an acrobat, and I guess wouldn't need them, or whatever.
I gotta admit, that's some act.
Nowhere to Hide is one of the more absurd Scooby-Doo Where Are You episodes, but its weird premise acts as a funny, unintentional deconstruction of the Scooby-Doo formula, and it features one of the show's most memorably simple villains. It's just a good time watching it. I give Nowhere to Hide 4 boxes of Scooby snacks out of 5. Before I go, I'd just like to let you folks know that Goulash has a new video up on the Gulag channel reviewing the second animated Addams Family film. Link in the description to watch it, and make sure to subscribe to the Gulag channel too, because there might just be some more Scooby videos there soon.
If you liked this video, like it, and if you loved it, click the subscribe and bell buttons for more vids. I'd also like to thank these fine folks pledged my shout-out tier on Patreon for all their kind support. Videos like this wouldn't be possible without all their help. Thank you for watching, see you next time. Dr. Wolfula signing out.